Well, hi guys. How you doing? How's everybody? Good, good to see you all 9 people here so far on this impromptu live stream because I have breaking news. We didn't see it coming either, but DJI has released an FPV drone. Who'd have thought, man? No advanced warning, no nothing, and hardly anybody knew about it. That's the interesting thing. It might have been one of the best kept secrets in the drone world, actually, because only 4 I Justine, FPV pilot extraordinaire, has reviewed it, and we we talk UAV, FPV drone. Is it worth it? The new FPV drone. There's Captain Drone and Bardwell. There's probably one of the best and most realistic reviews that I watched. But there's another one. There's another one. Another one. Another one. So let me ask you a question, guys. I put the DJI FPV drone in the search tags for this video, and where do you think? How do you think I stand? There's Ken Herron did a video on it. I mean, how do you think I stand in this list of videos about this drone that doesn't end? Well, we're going back a couple weeks now. At any rate, that's very impressive. Of course, I'm being facetious about breaking news. the, only, the only breaking news about this drone, I think, is going to be when you break the legs off of it. And speaking of lurking, here we got Mr. Ed. How you doing, Ed?
I'm doing all right. It's horrible weather here today.
Is it? It hadn't been bad. I actually went out and flew a little bit today. It was kind of nice up here. It's amazing how much 120 miles, how much of a difference it makes.
Yeah, front is right over us, so it's dropping rain. It's gray and gloomy. My heater is actually on.
Holy cow! And here it's hot. I got my air conditioner on. Anyway, we're yeah, we're going to. Well, Matt Condiff. Matt Condiff thinks I may be the best man to review this drone. Well, I did actually title this video, or in the description of this video, I said an impromptu live stream to distill all the hype after a slew of reviews have been released. We'll get to the only opinion that really matters. Well, mine. But you know what they say. You know what they say about opinions.
I don't know. Look, I mean, you have a great field to do a proper test of it too.
I do. But I don't think I need to actually have the drone in my hot little hands and fly it to form the opinions that I formed from probably watching 20 of these reviews today.
So apparently, you already have an opinion.
I oh, I have an opinion, and it's interesting, Ed, because I don't know, 15, 20 times today, I went and looked on Amazon, and I went and looked on Best Buy, and I saying, should I, if I buy it from Amazon, I can return it with no penalties. If you buy it from Best Buy and return it, they want to slap you with a 15% restocking fee. Do I really want this thing? And then I'd watch somebody's review, and the video, the flying, the cinematic aspect of it, it was just awesome. And I said, wow, that'd really be nice. And then I watched somebody else crash it and break it into a bunch of pieces, and I said no. And then I watched, and I've been like a yo-yo all day long, and
So what was so the guy that crashed and tore his up? Was he doing anything what you would consider crazy or?
No, it was in fact the one crash of note was Bardwell was actually bringing it out, flying it like he would a normal drone, and just smack, hit a tree, and it broke one of the legs clean off of it. So, and then he comes up in his video and pulls out another one. He says, "Good thing they sent me two of them." And I'm saying, speaking of two of them, here's the other half of the crew.
Good evening, Mitch.
Carlos, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good.
I thought after a day of watching this, I see Paul has got himself. He's in the green room, but he's muted and
He's cooking
got his
dinner.
camera
Right
off,
back.
and it says, "I'll be lurking a bit." So if
Yes.
I see his face, I'll bring him in. But
Well, I mean, trees can kind of screw up a lot of birds. I mean,
the way he hit this tree, a regular FPV quad would not have broken an arm.
Right.
It was no harder than these guys that go out and crash, 20 times a day practicing hard maneuvers. So there's a number of things that I gleaned from it, and it's not all bad either. That's the interesting thought. I think the thing for some people, it might be an absolute fun blast of a quad to fly for certain types of people. For other types of people, it's going to be a stone waste of money, and it's very expensive, and we'll talk about the costs involved with this thing.
so I mean, okay. So let me see if you think this is correct. This is an FPV drone for camera bird people.
Pretty much. My dividing line is, where does the center line of this thing run? In other words,
Can I ask you a question, Mitch?
yeah.
What does this FPV provide to the GPS drone that a Mavic Air in GPS mode or whatever doesn't do?
Well, we'll talk about what it does and what it can do, because it can be a full-blown, fully capable acro flying drone. It'll do anything. May not do it as it's a heavy drone, so it may not do it with as much performance. But any of these flights that you see guys rolling over and split S-ing through barriers, it'll do it. You can fly this thing exactly like you would fly any of your quads.
Just don't mess up.
Just don't hit anything. Same stick, same everything. It does have that capability, but it does have a tremendous amount of beginner-friendly safety stuff.
Do you see the beginner stuff? The beginner safety stuff would be more of a hindrance for a seasoned pilot.
And that's what I was going to tell you. I think the line for this thing starts and stops with varying degrees of maybe in the middle and absolutely I want it and absolutely I don't at either end is photography. Okay? If photography is at least more than 50% of what you want to achieve when you fly drones, you're probably already a camera drone guy. And like me, you may also be an FPV guy. I kind of sit right on that middle line. I enjoy the aerial photography aspect and like to go up and make pretty aerial pictures, and I've been a photographer all my life, but I've also been a pilot all my life, so I have the flying gene in me as well. So that's why for me it's a tough decision. Do I want it or don't I?
It's not.
Well,
you're going to do like you did with the what do they call that thing?
Well, the thing is, if you get it and then you find out it's not what you thought it was, you take it back. But I certainly have a slew of camera drones worth a lot that I paid a lot of money for, and I didn't send them back. I still use them on occasion.
On occasion.
But I don't. But I don't.
Keyword.
But I don't consider that flying, Carlos. I don't consider
No,
that.
no, no. I
you know,
totally get it. I'm just talking about you personally now. I
Yeah.
can't. I don't see you
So
benefiting.
what I
in
wanted,
any way.
what I wanted to do here is I wanted to talk about some of my, my opinions. That we've only got 9 people watching. What I think isn't going to matter to the world in general anyway.
They'll
DJI
always
isn't.
come back and watch the video.
Yeah, DJI isn't going to care. But I think I've got some pretty insightful um, opinions and thoughts about
Hey,
this
so
thing.
let me ask you this, Matt.
Yeah.
I wonder if, like you see people doing the live streams from their Mavics and stuff like that. I mean, Drone Bum's done one from his and whatever. Do you think you could do that with a DJI?
Well, it hooks up to the Fly app, the same app that the Mavic 2 and the Mini use, the Mavic Air 2. So if you can, I wouldn't know, I don't have it, but if you can live stream from the DJI Fly app, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to. Uh, those are things that wouldn't influence my decision one way or the other. What influences my decision, and again, I kind of fall in that middle line that I could probably enjoy the hell out of this thing because my style of FPV flying is not bando bashing. I like the cruising, and if you want to cruise, this thing probably would be tremendous. It's got tremendous range. It's got 10-kilometer range or some 6-kilometer. Anyway, further than you want to fly. If you're cruising, it's got long battery life. If you're doing acro bashing, it's only going to have 6-7 minutes, but you can get, they say 20 minutes if you're just cruising. It's got a 4K 60 camera on it. It's kind of like a super Mavic is what it is.
What's the closest camera you have to it?
Well, my Mavic 2 Pro camera is
And
it's a 1-inch sensor, 4K 30. This is a
FPV?
half-inch sensor, 4K. It'll do 4K 60.
What's your best FPV camera if you wanted to put it on a quad?
My DJI,
And
but
that
that only records at 1080. That's why everybody uses GoPros on their FPVs. And those people who fly FPVs, especially the new crop of the cinematic FPV pilots, are going to use GoPros. And a GoPro at 4K stabilized will certainly get you equal footage to this. So I mean, you can accomplish the same resolutions and quality now with some of the cameras you can carry on a regular quad. There are people who are claiming that for the camera, if again, the big go or no go, in my opinion, is photography. How important is aerial photography to you? If you don't care about aerial photography and you're an FPV guy now and you don't have a Mavic and you could care less, you do not want this drone. Carlos, this would be a waste of time for you.
Yeah.
Ed, you too. Most of the FPV community, the hobbyist FPV community that we know, this is absolutely, who already knows how to fly. Even if they don't know how to fly, great.
Right.
But even if they know how to fly, I don't think that many of them are going to be interested in this for these reasons.
See, I totally get what you're saying. This is my mind, what I'm thinking. Let's say, who's here? Matt Convict picks it up. He's a GPS guy. I'm just using him because he's a first name, nothing personal. And and he's going to fly it for the reasons you said as far as photography. Why can't he use the drone he already has to accomplish the same feat? Or the
You
same,
mean a Mavic? A Mavic?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because a Mavic will not fly 90 miles an hour. A Mavic will not. It's a gimbal drone.
Mm-hmm.
This thing only has a gimbal up and down, and it depends. The way that works depends on the mode you're in. There's 3 different flight modes. They call it normal, which is your basic Mavic type flight mode.
Right.
Position hold, the stick centered. You push it up, it goes up. You push it down. The big difference in this thing is all your steering, just like a Mavic, is done with the left stick, with the yaw stick.
Right.
But what the yaw stick does on this drone is, instead of just yawing it, it makes a coordinated turn.
Mm-hmm.
So you can look like, with this drone, even if you've never flown FPV, if you've only flown a Mavic, just by flying it like a Mavic, you can look like you've been an FPV pilot for years. Your turns will be perfectly coordinated. They'll be banked over and everything, just by moving that left stick. You have to hold the right stick forward to go forward, just like you do on a Mavic. Although this thing has another feature called cruise control. And basically what you do, if you're in the normal mode, or I think the cruise control only works in sport mode. And sport mode will go up to like about 50, 60 miles an hour. But if you're in sport mode, you're still got Mavic-like controls. Spring center, you push forward, the drone goes forward. Like a stabilized. Imagine you were flying a drone in stability mode. Except that you don't use the right stick to bank it to turn. You do all of that with the left stick, and it perfectly coordinates every turn. So you get that FPV look. And then the right stick, you pull it back. The right stick is not throttle in these first two modes. It's altitude, just like a Mavic.
That would be confusing to me.
It would be very confusing, and we'll talk a little bit about whether this is really a gateway into FPV, or it's going to teach horribly bad habits to guys trying to get into FPV,
right,
that they'll never get over, and they would have been much better off being less smooth with a tiny hawk in acro mode, learning how to fly the thing. Then there's the issue of whether you have the throttle stick spring centered.
Did they ever?
Well, you can have it either way.
Okay.
But if you have it spring centered and you go into full acro mode, you're going to be fighting that spring. Bardwell said that's what he did and it didn't bother him, but that would bother the hell out of me to lower the throttle. Or if you take the spring out of it, where it works like a normal throttle, and then if you're flying in any of the program modes, you have to manually put that stick right into the center. Okay, so the fact that two of the three flight modes, and the third flight mode they call manual, and manual is where you really find full acro. But in order to make manual full acro, you go in and change just a bunch of settings.
Before flight or during flight?
No, the settings you set up before flight to say, okay, I don't want a limit on the bank, or I do want a limit on the bank. In other words, for beginners, even in full acro, they can limit themselves to 20 or 30 degrees of bank. But when you remove all the limits, then your manual switch is indeed full acro. So there's a lot of stuff in this thing for the beginner, but that's a positive. But in my humble opinion, the negative is that if you've never flown FPV, there are things that you can learn with this. You will get,
Matt Cundup is pulled the trigger and he's getting one of these in the morning. And he's never flown FPV.
Well, and he'll be able to fly it. I mean, Ladrib gave one of these to his friggin' girlfriend who'd never flown a quad at all. And on her first flight, she was flying in and around awning posts and carports and around and between trees, because basically you push the stick forward and you move and you move the left stick and it looks like an FPV quad. And yet, if you let the sticks go, it just stops. Now, the cruise control in the sport mode, you push the stick forward, and when it's going the speed you want, you hit the cruise control button, and then you can let the stick go, and you don't have to hold it forward.
That's too much.
But still, you're still using the left stick. The throttle is not a throttle. It's an altitude control, up and down. So one of the things that makes it very easy for a ranked beginner to fly FPV in this thing is if they're in the normal mode and they've got the throttle or the left stick spring centered, okay, you don't have altitude control as a factor in FPV flying at all. You're flying a Mavic, and the only difference between this and a Mavic is the fact that this thing will make a coordinated turn when you move the left stick. A Mavic just yaws. But when
Now,
you have
wasn't there one of these? I know the Parrot came out with some kind of app or something where you can do an FPV mode, but aren't one of the Mavics able to?
the Mavics have it's not a real, it doesn't tilt the drone though. This thing actually banks the drone and makes a coordinated turn, see?
Right.
Whereas the FPV mode on the Mavics basically banks the gimbal to make it look like the drone is banked, but it's not. The drone is still skidding around the turn, and it's why you can't do this kind of flying, because you can't do the banks.
I was going to ask about that. It seems like okay, the camera that's on the gimbal, it's the same as your feed to your goggles, right?
Except that it does have a vertical gimbal. When you're in any mode but acro, it stays level with the horizon. You can adjust the camera tilt,
so you can't tell what roll you have.
Yeah, it stays level with the not level with the horizon, up and down. It only goes up and down. When the drone tilts, the camera tilts. There's no stabilization on the roll axis. So it always looks like an FPV. But if you go into a climb or whatever, and the nose comes up, this thing will still stay fairly level.
I got you.
Now, when you go into acro mode, it locks, and then you have an adjustment on the radio, so you can actually change your camera angle in flight while you fly an FPV. That's a cool feature. If you come upon something you want to slow down and you're flying FPV, you can lower your camera angle down a little bit. You want to go racing through something, you raise your camera. So that's kind of a neat feature.
With the
wheel?
It's
got the same wheel on the controller that the Mavic controllers have.
I love that aspect.
That's
cool.
That
is very cool.
And there's no reason why we can't do that. Why we can't do that in our FPV drones, by not with a gimbal, but we could certainly put a little servo in there.
I'm trying to figure out
adjust the camera tilt if we want to build.
I'm trying to figure out holding the controller. It's basically, I don't know. You're a pincher. So what would you do? Like, all of a sudden?
Well, these things are not really designed for pinchers. If you fly with your thumbs, your fingers are all in the right place. And there's but you can work it out. I always manage to find a free finger. I find a free finger for every occasion.
But in mid-flight, it sounds like too much thinking involved.
No, it isn't, because if you're used to flying camera drones, you're always working the tilt, because that's all part of getting the shots you want to get. So you're used to it. I'm used to working the tilt during flight. That's not a problem. And there'll be a thing in your goggles that tells you how many degrees. You'll see the scale.
You remember? Well, I'm sure you remember. There was a setting for the gimbal speed, up and down.
Yeah.
Can you do that with these also?
I imagine there probably is a setting, because there's settings for all kinds of stuff in here. You can set your rates. You can set the expo, soften up the center stick. You can
probably do a 3-position switch, to where one way is straight ahead, one's up.
They do. They have a programmable switch, which you probably can set to do anything, including. And again, I haven't fooled with it, and I don't know. But the point I'm trying to make, and the whole purpose of this little stream, was to say, is it totally a waste of time? Is it the greatest thing since sliced bread? Or is it right smack in the middle, depending on who you are, and what are the pros and what are the cons?
I think it's all about who's buying it.
Right. So here's the thing. What you have to, before you buy this thing, you have to define what your goals are. What are you looking to accomplish
when you fly?
Do you just want to be able to take videos where the thing looks like it's flying FPV and go fast, but yet you really don't ever want to have to learn acro? This would be perfect for that. I mean, seriously, it would be.
I totally get it. Just sounds...
it would be perfect if you're a photographer, if you're a camera guy. What does that say, Ed? Drone pool. Hey, Dan. I didn't say hi to anybody in the chat.
Well, I don't want to interrupt you, but
Let me go back and say hi. We got Matt Cundiff. Mel,
I
how you
would
doing?
like to say one thing, Mitch, and that is I think we have a great follow-up opportunity, especially with Matt Cundiff, who is getting one of these tomorrow morning, and he's never flown FPV. So I think that would be a great follow-up stream so Matt can let us know how it goes.
I think so. And the point that I was making is if you're the camera guy and you're not interested, you're really not interested in that much in the flying, learning how to fly acro so that you can, fly around trees and bandos and crap like that. You're interested in taking that beautiful, smooth, soaring FPV type cinematography. This drone would be perfect. But the more you fly this drone in the stabilized modes, which is what you're going to be using, the more bad habits you'll develop, and the longer it'll take you if you finally decide to get a real FPV quad in acro mode and learn how to fly it. So if your goals are leaning more towards the photography, and you're a guy that wants to get videos similar to those you saw in the promotional video, but maybe not as close to the ground or as dramatic or not with the big loops and things, you can do most of that in the sport mode, which will give you 50, 60 miles an hour and fairly steep turns.
They're not going to take advantage of that because, and this is just my observation, people could tell me I'm wrong, go to hell. Most of these camera guys do not use sport mode.
No, but the guys Carlos, I agree, and I don't ever use sport mode because if I'm going up there to take those kind of cinematic shots, I don't want to go fast.
Yeah, but I'm even thinking, sorry to cut you off, I'm even thinking that a lot of these guys, just my observation, they don't feel comfortable going fast. Because now, and not only that, but here's another aspect that's going to be new to some people is putting goggles on, standing, sitting, and having that whole that can mess with people's heads too. I mean,
well, and that's another point, Carlos, and that's another thing that another aspect that you have to consider as far as learning, because learning FPV is a whole other purpose for this drone. And remember, I just said if you're going to buy this drone, you have to decide what it is that you want to accomplish with it. And the first thing that I talked about was, do you just want to take FPV looking cinematography without having to go through all of the time and expense to learn how to fly acro FPV? That's one thing. The second thing is, remember, this all hinges on whether your priorities lie more towards the photography end of it or towards the flying end of it. Right. If you're a camera drone guy who watches Bardwell and all the FPV guys and Mr. Steele and would give his eye teeth to learn how to fly FPV, but just hasn't wanted to fool with all the building and the soldering and all that other stuff, but you do, and you know how to fly camera drones, then this is not going to be a bad way, because the first thing that it's going to give you, Carlos, is what you just mentioned. It's going to give you the goggles familiarization. And I don't know about you, but I remember when I first got my first FPV drone, the first thing that I had to get used to was being able to interpret the goggles view into what's the drone doing.
Well, you've been doing line of sight for so long, it just.
No, but it's different.
Yeah, but it's different because
you want to know if you're 2 feet off the ground, 6 feet off the ground.
Yeah, a high off the ground, and
even
this drone will allow you to become a goggles pilot, maybe not an acro goggles pilot, but a goggles pilot very safely. It's got obstacle. If you're going around in a program, you can go 25 miles, 30 miles an hour. It has obstacle avoidance. It has all kinds of safety, and it's got a panic button that if you
What do you
hit that
think- what do you
button,
think-
it just stops and hovers. Boom,
What
just
do you think the
brakes.
drift would be if you're going 30, 40 miles an hour? Let's say 30, and it hits that obstacle. It's going to go what, 5 feet before it actually stops?
I don't know, but I doubt. I think that based on what I've seen of novices who've never flown FPV, put the goggles on and fly this thing around, it's going to be easy.
Okay.
And it will be fun, and it's going to be a blast for people that have never flown FPV to actually start getting the feeling of what we feel when we fly. They may not be turning upside down, they may not be, but they'll be getting that I'm a bird type feeling from this. And if that's what your goal is, and again, you don't want to become a hardcore, you may buy this thing and never venture past sport mode in it and still enjoy the hell out of it. But if you're a guy who could care less about photography, isn't interested in the pretty FPV cinematic pictures, you're a basher, you're a hardcore, you're a Mr. Steele, Nurk kind of guy, although Nurk is a photographer, but you're one of these kind of guys that is all about the flying. You don't want this thing.
Can I ask
First
one
of all,
question? Does it give you flight restrictions, TFRs? Where it
Oh, of
tells you-
course, absolutely, full geofencing.
So then it
which
tells
is-
you when you can and can't fly.
Yeah, if you're in airspace like that, you have to deal with the unlocking and all that other nonsense. That's one of the things. Now, I was going to say we got to talk about this in stages. And first on, I'm trying to talk about what I think are some of the positives of this thing and who it might be for, because they're going to sell a lot of these things, and a lot of people are going to just love the hell out of it.
Yeah, for about a week.
I would enjoy it. I would. Well, that we didn't get to the downsides yet. We're still talking about the upsides. I mean,
All right.
I've had Mavics. Carlos, I've had Mavics for years, and I've never crashed one. So you can fly without crashing these things. Yes, the odds of crashing this is a little more, but the kind of guys that crash a lot aren't going to be
Well, I mean, the
interested in
thing
this.
is, it's like with me, where I fly, I would like to venture out further, but I don't trust the birds I have. I'd love to fly over that big retention pond that's to the north of the property, you know, and fly over that and stuff. But I don't trust any of my birds to do that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things Bardwell pointed out, that this is if you're are interested in long range, if you're an FPV guy interested in long range but never wanted to go through the grief of what all the GPS rescue and all that other stuff, this thing has its merits and it has its place. And I would love to have one, because I'd have fun with it, because it's something different and it does different things.
I
But
could have fun with
what-
it. Yeah.
what-
But
would
the
this-
downsides,
What would this offer that you don't have already, Mitch? That's what I'm
Listen.
wondering.
that's not the point, Carlos. The point is
Oh.
you can't have too many toys, and this thing it
That
has a
makes
lot
sense.
of neat, cool, flashy lights on it. It makes nice
Oh.
growling noises when you boot it up. And,
OSD? Does it have OSD? It tells you.
oh,
when
it
you're
has all
flying?
that. Yeah, it's full. The
So whatever you
information
used to see in the app on the phone is now somewhere
similar to it. Yeah, you get all that information in the goggles. It's even got a little home point that shows you right where you are
That's cool.
when you're flying. From what I've seen, it's very well done and very well engineered. But, and I'd love to have one, but do I want to have one?
That you'll never fly?
$2,000 worth of one. That's the killer.
Comes with one battery.
Yeah, here's the deal. So let's talk about the first downside of this thing. And it's the cost. Well, let me. You keep interrupting me when I go to say hello to everybody in the chat. So let me take a minute and do that. Brian BMac Ariels, how you doing, buddy? He says can't have too many toys. Yeah, exactly. You've seen my drone wall.
Come on,
behind
he
me
has
there.
to ask
Yeah.
permission before he buys toys. I know.
Matt Cundiff is here. Rigger Mortis is here. How you doing? He's got it right. He who dies with the most toys wins. And we've got Ludset. Hey, buddy, how you doing? No matter what time I come on, all the usual suspects manage to show up.
Tomas Ariels was
Good
here.
to see. Yeah, Tomas is here.
There's a guy, Gary Bauer.
Gary Bauer. I know. I just made him a moderator a little earlier, and
You already said.
I
Mitch.
saw Mel was in here a little earlier, and Dan Drone Pool, Tomas. Good to see you guys.
400 ADL stepped in.
Yeah, Michael Blade. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, that's
Good
right.
to see
Throw
you.
that
Yeah,
in.
good to see you. So let me talk.
What's up?
Let me talk a little bit about about what I think are the most egregious downsides.
Egregious.
The deal killer downsides for me. Okay? Number one, top of the list, deal killer, $159 battery.
Yeah, but it's 20 minutes.
Let that sink in a minute.
But it's 20 minutes, you say, right?
20 minutes of gentle cruising,
Oh, okay.
6-7 minutes of flying like we fly.
Okay.
Okay. $159.
For
That's
one battery?
almost as one friggin' battery. That's almost as expensive as an Inspire battery.
And
more
quick question,
expensive.
the battery's on top.
It's in the back.
Is it susceptible to damage if you crash?
The battery's
Yeah.
probably the least susceptible part of that quad to damage.
No, but I'm saying, but if you crash, not only
if you
have to
crash
fix-
hard enough, the whole thing is going to turn into a million pieces. But
Okay,
but
that's what I was thinking.
I'm not worried about. We haven't gotten to crash damage yet. Who do we got here?
How
Somebody-
many batteries do the pack, the starter
my
pack
God.
come with?
Here comes Art. Hey Art, what the hell is that?
Music.
Oh, that's perfect. If
No
you
music.
go Up, that's perfect.
Yeah, but we're talking about the
Artco
DJ.
mask.
Okay, how you doing, Art? Good to see you.
I'm doing good.
All right. So the point I was trying to make is we were talking about the downsides to this thing, and the downsides, to me, the deal killer, and anybody that flies FPV knows that if you don't go to the flying field without 4, 5, 6, 10 batteries, it's not going to be any fun. Okay. And the fact that it's a proprietary battery that uses a proprietary charger, and it costs $159. Let that sink in, guys.
$150.
This is why you come. Look,
This is-
whatever Spank does, you do.
Yeah. Okay. The $159 comes with one battery. Now I'm sure they're going to have a Flymore kit, but at $160 a battery, that Flymore kit's going to be expensive too. And speaking of expensive, here comes my highest priced guest, Mr. Paul.
You still owe me
Paul.
$50,
Good
man.
to see you.
How you doing, buddy?
Hey,
What's
Mitch,
up,
how are you?
Paul?
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
We need the clip. We need the clip.
Which one?
All right, so that's number one. Number one big time downside for me is the cost of the batteries. Because the drone, as far as I see it, is, when you think about this, it's $1,300 for the package. 670 of that is the goggles. Let's say 200 of it or 250 is the controller. So what's left when you get done taking the goggles and the controllers is maybe a $400 drone. Okay, so the drone, and if you take the battery out of it, it's a $300 drone. So the drone itself is the cheapest part of this whole deal. The battery, the controller, and the goggles probably aren't going to get wrecked. You can use, if you buy another drone, you'll be able to just buy the drone and use the same battery and goggles and controller. From what I see, the controller is going to be useless for anything but this drone. So
EBR says it's $1,300.
yeah, $12.99.
It's not a bad.
And he's right for what you get for $1,300.
I thought I heard you hear say 2,000.
No, I said 2,000 because by the time you buy the drone and you buy the care refresh and you buy 3 or 4 more batteries that
I
you're going to
got you.
need, you're over $2,000.
Okay.
So this is,
we don't know yet if that controller is bindable to other quads.
It's
Well,
not-
as it is right now, nobody knows.
wait, are we saying other DJI quads?
Yeah, I don't think it'll work with other DJI quads, but
So
who knows? Who knows
Wow.
yet? Because they can make firmware updates to make any of this shit work with anything else. JSK is in here. He says they want $739 for the drone and the battery. Well, then they really are giving you a bargain if you buy the combo kit, you know, which is what they do. They give you a lot of stuff, but if you add up the retail prices of all of it, it gets a lot more expensive. But you can figure if you want to buy all the stuff that you need for this thing to actually be able to have fun with it, get enough batteries to carry you through a day of flying, you're going to be about $2,000, and that's a lot of money. Okay, so that's one of the big downsides for me, because for $2,000 you can have 5. You can actually have almost 10 Nazguls, okay, or iFlight Sedoras, or any one of a number of $200 to $300 bind and fly, indestructible, basically quads. For $30 a piece, you can buy a bucket full of batteries.
Yep.
And you can buy, you know, the goggles and the controller that you use on your basic FPV quad is usable on anything, including model airplanes and everything but DJI products.
And you
I
can
can
put
use my
iNav
Radio
on it
Master.
and have return to home and all that too, right?
Yeah, and I can even take one of my, if I just want return to home, I got that. I just flash iNav, put a compass and GPS on the thing that costs $20, and learn how to set the switches to do what I want. It may not be as finessed as the one on the DJI.
Yeah, but see, I mean, again, it sounds like a bird that don't know how to do all that.
Exactly, and I made that point earlier, and I still stick by it, that it is going to be right for a lot of people, but not those of us that already know how to fly FPV and
Metro
aren't really interested. Now, the only reason that it kind of is the photography opportunities with this thing, I think, are going to be terrific. I think that guys without any talent or FPV flying are going to be able to fool an awful lot of people with some of the video that comes out of this thing.
Ron Lockwood ran through a playground with a 360 and made it look FPV.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the end result is going to be a lot of videos from guys, but they're going to be flying it in fully stabilized mode. They're only going to be using one stick to turn the thing, and that makes it do the coordinated turns instead of just yawing, and it banks it over, and I swear it's going to be, and it's got built-in image stabilization, so it's going to be tough on a lot of the resultant videos from this quad to tell whether the guy is actually an accomplished FPV pilot or not, especially on the videos that are just cruising, where all of a sudden he's not rolling over. And
did you notice that Bill Metro?
I did, and I want to thank you, Bill. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Welcome.
Good to see you. When you go fast, you see the props, so it's not necessarily a good thing for the camera guys.
Yeah, the props are in shot, but even in a Mavic or a Phantom, especially a Mavic, when you get that nose down real and you go real fast, you see props in the shot because the gimbal raises up when you get the nose down, and the gimbal comes up to keep it level. There's not that much. I've watched the videos, and the props in the shot are not that bad, and you can crop it in post-processing and get rid of that if that's something you really, if you're really looking for that thing.
If you're an FPV guy too, sometimes props in the shot isn't such a horrible thing.
Yeah, and it depends on what you're out for. I don't think that this thing is going to be the be-all end-all of cinematic FPV drones. I think it's a hybrid, which is what they're calling it, between a Mavic, because it has all the flight modes and all the stabilization and the return to home and the hovering and the obstacle avoidance and all the things that we, everybody's gotten used to and loves about the Mavics. But even in the GPS modes, that left stick, the big difference is the left stick doesn't just yaw the quad, it makes a coordinated turn, which we all have to work at by using a combination of two sticks, okay, to make that keep that bank angle and yet keep it coming around in the turn, not just going sideways.
Yeah, and to do it just so too.
Yeah, but this does that all it's all programmed in. So that makes a guy who's never flown FPV look like a world-class FPV pilot.
Can you hear me, Paul? A little more roll, a little more roll.
Yeah. You'll look like by looking at the videos from this thing, you're going to look like a world-class FPV pilot.
Yeah, yeah. Make it a lot easier to make those.
But to brag about the fact that you're an FPV pilot because this thing is doing all of the work for you,
right,
is not right. And there's going to be a ton of those videos out there.
Oh, it's okay to say you're a good FPV pilot if you're not. Come on.
Well, but you understand what I'm saying is there's going to become there's going to be a lot of FPV posers. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Well, I mean, technically, they're still FPV
because of the goggles.
Hey, my Mavic with the white goggles is FPV. You know. What are you showing us there, Art?
Oh, that's my mask.
It's a little
drone. Right through it.
I can't see it. What is it?
That's his. He calls it a mask.
My badge.
Oh, your logo.
Yeah. Oh, your logo. Okay, I see.
The Bill from Coast to Coast Drones.
Is that a drone on it? Was that a drone?
Yeah, it's a drone and
cool
in the background.
Look, he looks great with it on.
So, hiya, Bill. How you doing? Coast to Coast Drones. Good to see you. And Daytona Hot Rod and Daytona is here. Good to see you.
Who's the drunk in the middle?
EBR says hi to you. No Fly Drone is here. How you doing, guy? Anyway, so I think it has its merits. Okay, so let's summarize what we've talked about. If you're a guy that cares more about photography than flying, you probably love this thing. If you're a guy that doesn't care at all about photography and is a FPV hobbyist, likes to build, likes to bust things up, fly hard, fly through things, this is definitely not for you. For a guy like me who's older and likes the photography aspect and also likes cruising, and this would probably be not a bad thing if it wasn't so friggin' expensive. You understand what I'm saying? I think that because of the cost of the batteries, and if you do break it, the cost of repairs are going to be high. Okay, so that's one aspect of it. Who's it for? Now, one thing we didn't talk about is it got Art? You're distracting, very distracting, young man.
Just do what Spank does, Art.
Sit there in the corner, like. One of the big things that's been bandied about this quad is as a learning FPV aid. I mean, that's a big selling point. A lot of guys fly camera drones. Paul, you know what it took to learn FPV, being a camera drone pilot.
I was just going to say, for me, having gone through the ranks, this is not for me, this DJI drone, because it's like, I've already, I'm learning how to do this and feel like I'm almost there. It's like, and I,
well, you are. And let me ask you a question, Paulie, because the difference kind of boils down to two different experiences. The stabilized, the stab or horizon mode style of flying, and the acro style of flying. And one of the things we've talked about, I think, a lot on this stream is that staying in stabilized mode too long is like riding your bicycle with training wheels.
Right.
Way after the point where you should have taken the training wheels off and fallen down a few times.
Agreed.
And I think that's going to be the downside of learning with this thing. And yet I think that one of the hardest thing, and this is the psychology of this, the hardest thing in the world for people to do who with this thing is going to be throwing that switch for the first time in the acro mode. Because you got $1,300 out there, not a tiny hawk.
Yeah.
Okay, and that dollar sign is going to be, you're going to see in your goggles when as your hand approaches the switch, big dollar signs are going to show up in the goggles, just to warn you. Danger, Will Robinson. Be very
They're
careful. Be
off
very
learning
careful
with
with
the
that
Tiny
switch.
Hawk and flying this for camera purposes, or like you said, photography purposes. This is not an acro trainer in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Do you
with you
imagine me
there. I
teaching
mean,
Paul acro with this thing? I would have to learn how to fly it.
No
because
way.
It doesn't fly acro
Absolutely
mode.
do not try to learn acro modes or anything with this drone.
Well, and that's another thing that they say it's possible. And guys look like Billy Kyle. He did a video, and he's never flown acro, and he ended up learning how to fly, and he started flying full acro in this thing because it lets you do it in steps, and it has a panic button, and that panic button, your thumb is on, your fingers on it all the time, and the minute anything doesn't look right, you hit the button, and it just breaks and levels off and hovers, stays right in place. You hit the return to home button because your heart's beating like this, and you take your goggles off and lay down on the ground while you recover, and the thing will come over and come home and land.
Cut the
There
bar.
are there are a lot of great ideas to this thing. The fact that you can limit the bank and limit the pitch when you first start in FPV mode, all the panic oh shit switch type of thing, but
You're not going to bump into a tree and bounce off of it.
right, are people going to do that, or are they going to say, okay, now I'm used to flying in the goggles and I can drive this thing around like a Mavic, even though it looks like an FPV quad.
Mitch, don't take this personal, but even you, who flies $400 or $500 quads, does not want to crash into a tree.
No, I don't want to crash.
And you're going to fly.
But if I do crash,
you're going to fly as such. So I can imagine a new GPS pilot.
Yeah.
GPS pilot filing this. They're not going to want to do 40.
But as I would say, will the majority of people who buy this be happy and get enough joy out of the new things, the flying in the goggles, the being able to soar around and bank? Will that be enough for most of them? And I think it will. I don't think this is going to turn a lot of camera drone guys into FPV pilots. I think this is going to give camera drone guys an FPV experience. But I think that I think what will happen is when a guy decides, okay, it's time for me to really start flying FPV, I think he's going to put this DJI drone aside and go out and buy himself a Tiny Hawk or something. And start to learn without all the risk of what happens when you crash this thing and have to get it fixed. Because remember, DJI has to fix it.
How much is the refresh?
I don't know, but it's got to be $150, $200, I would imagine.
Yeah, John Coopy mentioned the price earlier.
Yeah. Hey, John Coopy, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Well,
good to see you. So we're having yet another DJI Mavic stream. I've watched.
Drone Obsessed Jerry's in the house.
Oh, hey Jerry, how you doing, buddy? People need a beater to start with. Yeah, and I think that again, one of my strong feelings has always been learning to fly FPV is throw that acro switch as soon as you can even keep the thing in the air for 30 seconds. As long as you got the throttle stick down and where you can hold altitude and keep it fairly level, get yourself into acro mode and learn how to fly, because the longer you stay in stabilized mode, the harder it's going to be to learn. Because in any mode where you have to hold the right stick forward to go forward is not naturally the way you fly in an FPV drone.
Oh, Mitch.
I call it freeing your mind, Mitch. It's hard to free your mind to go to acro.
It is.
Can you throw these quads?
Yeah, you can, but they're heavy, very heavy. And Bardwell commented that it just didn't have the fling that his lighter, more powerful. Well, it does. He did. Bardwell, I mean, you could watch the flight video from Bardwell flying around his property.
I'll have to check it out.
And if nobody told you that was a DJI quad, you would not know it.
It's not
you
on,
would say he's just flying he's just flying a quad, because it is capable, and that's something I didn't know that it would be, but it is capable of full acro. How many people who buy this thing are actually going to throw it into full acro. Have the
DJI
guts to do
Camera
it.
Fresh, 200 first year, 349 for 2 years.
Yeah, and the camera, which is hanging right out there, and will be the first thing to get broken if you hit anything. I think 150 or $200. I saw the most interesting video that I saw today was a teardown video of this thing.
I was just going to ask, is it unibody?
Uh,
Like put together with guts inside? The frame.
it's hard to say. There's a plastic. Most of the plastic outside has screws, and there's a lot of screws on this thing, and it's designed to be opened up fairly easily. And this guy did a teardown on it. He took the gimbal off, and he took the top off, and he exposed the ESC. And the ESC in this thing is very similar to the kind we use. To replace it, you're going to have to solder. Okay. He showed where all the antennas are, and there are antennas down in those feet things in the front. The arms are fairly sturdy, but there seems to be a couple of weak points on it. Bardwell ripped one of the arms right off,
are the feet the antenna?
Yeah, there's 4 antennas. 2 of them are in the feet, 2 of them are up on the side of the bodies. It's got good cooling. It's got a fan built into it. It looks like a piece of NASA engineering. It looks like Mars rover style engineering when you take the sides off of it. It really is an incredible piece of engineering, but again, you don't want to bash it. It's going to be a very expensive quad, not only to buy and to buy batteries, but if you break it, you have to deal with somebody else fixing it.
Well, John Cooper just said, I've been flying FPV for a long time. I think it would feel stressful, going out flying and then knowing, that it's going to break so easily if he has one accident. And he has to wait for DJI to fix it on top.
Yeah, that's one of the problems, because it's going to, there's already a lot of crashes in the videos that are out there, and these are people that got it to review. And then Bardwell broke the leg off of one.
Are they waterproof by any chance?
No.
Don't buy it. No. Don't buy it.
Don't appear to be waterproof at all. The upside of it is if you're a guy that has disposable income, and likes photography, loves photography, and as always, just flies camera drones, and you decide and you want to go faster and look more like you're actually flying than just being an airborne camera platform, you probably could have a blast with this thing. You'll probably keep your altitude up high. You probably won't crash it. You'll probably use return to home all the time, and it'll probably work great for you. You'll get the FPV experience. You'll get the bird's eye view goggle experience. Some people will probably enjoy that more than flying a real FPV drone. And I know that I would enjoy flying this thing, because I think I could be very relaxed while I was flying this thing, and just sit back and be very relaxed, knowing that I didn't have to. I wasn't doing anything or being close to crashing like I am when I get up high and cruise around. I get very relaxed.
You have the original goggles, right?
I do.
Anybody in the chat have original goggles? Have they used them? I'm curious now.
I never use them anymore. I tried it about 6 months ago. Yeah, you get a nice experience, but you still get the flat level camera drone experience.
Is that your first goggle experience?
I tried some goggles way back when airplanes.
Okay.
Airplanes, yeah. And the planes bounced around so much, and the radio and the transmission was so bad, the goggles were so bad that it was not any fun.
I mean, I thought it was really cool when I put the goggles on the first time, those big white ones. But you can't go fast. But it gives you precision flying. I will say that you can go in between trees so much.
Not just that, but it gives you, if you're doing aerial photography, it gives you a really good framing tool to see what the cameras, what you're going to actually end up with.
And even the head tracking was pretty cool. I remember that.
Yeah, the head tracking was great, except that's something that could really screw you up if you get all out of whack and you don't remember how to reset it all to center. You're going, you feel you're flying, but you're going you think you're going sideways.
That would be freaky.
Yeah. So let's get back to this DJI drone.
Yeah,
The
that's a ticket.
the bad side of it again, I think, is the cost, and for a real FPV quad, it's fragile. For a Mavic, it's rugged. Okay, let's put it that way. Compared to the Mavic, this thing is a tank. It's
But
a
you
lot
consider
stronger.
also the goggles and the controller that come with it. The cost isn't astronomical for DJI.
Yeah,
I
but
know
the control-
battery's ridiculous.
The controller is only good for that drone.
At this point,
Maybe we don't know. At this, we don't know.
yeah, they're going to have another FPV drone, and there's no reason why it wouldn't work with this controller. However, when you think about the Mavics, there's never been a Mavic that came out that worked with the controller from the previous Mavic until the smart controller came out.
So let me ask you this, Mitt. So in this package everybody's talking about, where you get the drone, you get the goggles, and you get the radio. Will the goggles work with the regular air units like you use?
Yes, the version 2 goggles will work, and there's a menu setting that you go in, and you actually go in the menu setting in the goggles and say, I'm using this with the air unit or Vista. And then it changes the whole way the goggles operate. And then when you go back to flying your DJI FPV quad, you have to go back and tell the goggles that now I'm flying the FPV again. But when you tell it that you're flying an air unit or a Vista, it's indistinguishable from what I've seen.
So in other words,
V1.
if you bust it all up, at least you got the goggles out of it.
Yeah, you got the goggles. I don't know whether the radio or transmitter would be any good. The battery, the way this thing is, you probably
$1,500 goggles.
yeah. I think that
What'll happen?
the battery you could sell on eBay because those things are going to be at a premium.
A quick goodbye to Thomas Ariel, who's leaving us.
Oh, okay,
Tomas.
Tomas. Thanks, buddy. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Yeah, I'm surprised we got a nice, between 25 and 30 people hanging around here on a.
Cool, man.
Yeah, I think this is just popping up.
Okay, so Mick,
yes.
what percentage you're going to get it? 40% lower, right?
Probably.
0?
I almost did.
Are you feeling good today? Everything's good in the world around you?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not going to buy it.
I went out and actually went out and flew today. And
No, I was going to say,
yeah.
you only bought the other one because life wasn't so good.
I was
right?
pissed. Yeah. No, but that's the nice thing. Amazon. I'll tell you what. If Amazon if they didn't charge sales tax on this, I probably would have ordered one. But when I got in there and I saw that they were charging, they had to collect sales tax on it. That's when I said nah. And then I watched another couple of videos, and it's like having one guy on each shoulder yelling at you, pulling you in this direction and that direction.
Animal house.
Yeah, I mean,
Buy it. Don't buy it.
buy it.
You
Don't
don't
buy it.
need it. You need
But
it.
see, that's the neat thing about buying it from Amazon is Amazon. You just buy their return policy is brutal. I mean, you
can't
just
beat
say, "I want to send it back." Why? Does it matter? No.
Doesn't matter. No box or anything. Bring it back to cold.
Yeah, and then they don't even restock it most of the time. They throw it in. They throw it in these big bins they sell off to these guys at auction.
Mm-hmm.
So they can make YouTube videos about buying pallets of returns from Amazon.
Would a stimulus check change your mind as far as buying one of these drones?
What or what?
If you got a stimulus check soon?
No, because we're going to get a stimulus check. I got money. I mean, it's not that I couldn't
Well,
afford.
I know.
to buy it.
Yeah,
I,
I'm just saying. I don't know if that
can
would have
afford
changed
the
your
thing.
mind.
No. What he's trying to do is get you to say yes, so when he gets his, he'll feel better.
No. I'm not definitely.
No, I just just like the Mavic Mini. I got all excited about that thing. The Mini 2. I went out and bought one. I flew it 2 or 3 times and got bored. I was bored already with it.
Yeah.
And I took it back. I said, "No, what do I need this thing for?
That's too painful.
$600 and
Well,
some
you could
dollars
throw
for this."
snow
Yeah,
at it like Sean Oz did.
Oh yeah, all
Well-
the snow that Mitch has. Yeah, that makes sense.
No, I just and with this thing here, like I say, the downsides, the cost of the batteries is for me the deal breaker.
Right.
Okay, I mean that's simple.
Does
Just
this kit come with more than one battery, by the way?
One battery.
One
For
battery.
money.
Wasn't bad.
$159.
Oh, what about the props? Proprietary and
Yeah, absolutely
Self-strap
proprietary.
to-
And then Drew Ladrib was commenting on the fact that they're not polycarbonate like our props are. They're plastic.
Wow.
Oh, cheap plastic.
Wow.
And his girlfriend was flying this thing and nicked one of those aluminum poles and broke and just destroyed a prop. Lucky she didn't break the leg off the thing.
Yeah, well.
But the props probably aren't going to be that expensive, but they don't have in the DJI store at this point a complete set of spares for this thing. You see the gimbal in there, you see the props in there.
You said they do or do not have spare props.
They don't. They don't have leg. Oh, they had props, but that's about all they had. They didn't have the arms. They didn't have motors. They didn't have electronics components, ESCs.
And I got a feeling they're going to need plenty of those coming.
I think so. I think so.
If I fly them, for sure.
Yeah, that's so. The biggest downside for me is the fact that the batteries. I mean, you can buy a whole drone for what one of those batteries costs. If I want a long range quad that has a return to home switch on it, I already have them.
You already have two or three.
I put iNav in them, and if anything happens to the fail safes, it turns around and comes home and lands. And yet it didn't cost $1,300, and I don't have to pay $160 for a battery for the thing. But I don't want to say that it isn't for everybody. I think that there are a lot of guys that will absolutely love this thing. A lot of people are just going to love it, especially guys that are not drone pilots. A lot of these photographers, a lot of these YouTube people, like iPhondo, you know who he is, the Turkish guy that
Not really, but
he does a lot of one of the big time influencers. I didn't look at his review because there's nothing he can say to me. I only want to I only care about reviews from guys who fly FPV. That's it. I don't. I mean, no offense to Bill the drone reviewer,
who?
but Bill the drone reviewer. But I don't care what he thinks about this.
He admittedly said he cannot fly FPV. It makes him dizzy.
I mean, I just don't care. I don't care about these opinions. Not because I don't think I like the guy. Bill's the guy that got me started in YouTube, so I have a lot of respect for him. But he's just, this is not his thing. And why listen to people who are not knowledgeable? I'll listen to Bardwell.
Makes sense.
He knows what he's talking about. And
I just had a horrible thought, but Mr. Nice Guy this year.
Yeah, there you go. But there are going to be a lot of people that are gonna love it. I would enjoy it. I would love to fly this thing. I think it'd be a lot of fun to fly. It'd be very relaxing to fly. I think you'd be able to get some really good cruising video. But I'm not really a basher freestyle guy anyway. So for me, I'm even hesitant to do that with my drones that are almost unbreakable. Why would I want to do it with something that I can't fix?
And a quarter of the cost.
Yeah. Craig is here, Mad Kiwi, and Hugh Asgard. How you doing, Hugh? Long time, buddy.
Oh, he said he's going to be putting out his first FPV video soon. Asgard Studios.
Cool.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and I think this might be a gateway. It might actually be a gateway for some of the camera drones guys to begin to get used to the goggles. Well, a lot of camera drone guys but look, Chris Hope, a lot of guys that Paul, a lot of camera drone guys that were nothing but camera drone guys are now FPV pilots, and
really
there's the desire there, and I think that this might be a great first step for them to get used to flying with the goggles and get used to the feel. But before they get the muscle memory of flying in the camera drone style of stick movement, where all turns are with the left stick, hold the stick forward to go forward, in the stabilized mode style of FPV flying, put it down and get a real FPV quad that isn't going to cost you a fortune, where the batteries are cheap, and
So
pair
instead
of
of getting
goggles.
the DJI Care Refresh, get yourself a ready to fly Tiny Hawk 2 kit.
Yeah, get one of those.
Tiny
There's a
Hawk
number of
2.
good kits, and start learning and take it from where you left off with the FPV, and use the FPV, the DJI FPV quad, for where it's best suited in lower risk
Space, a lot of
types of flying. Lower risk types of flying. It is not
Right.
designed for the high risk bando bashing, office parking lot flying, concrete column finding.
This is above tree line. It's above tree line.
Exactly.
Sure.
And in that, take it into the mountains, fly up and down the slopes with it. You got tremendous range. That's one of the benefits. You got tremendous clarity in the goggles. It's going to give people experiences they've never
Yeah.
had. It'll go in manual mode like 89 miles an hour, but it'll go 60 miles an hour, I think, in sport mode, which is
Yeah.
certainly fast enough to get that feeling, that exhilarating, soaring, flying feeling that
There's
that
going to
we
be
like.
lots of videos out there. I could see them coming already.
And they're going to be good. And what's going to be
long
amazing,
range.
yeah, what's going to be amazing about the flying in these videos is it's going to look like the pilots are much better pilots than they really are.
I wonder.
Oh, I'm telling you, I could see it in Drib's girlfriend flying and looking like an FPV pilot when she didn't know anything other than to move the left stick back and forth. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting, and it may be great for a lot of people. And I will tell you this: knowing me, if I had not gotten into FPV and stayed a camera drone pilot, I would be buying this thing.
I think you're still a little on the fence about buying it too. A little part of you wants one. I know it.
Well, I want everything, but that doesn't mean I can have it.
I would like to interject something here.
Certainly.
And I think that some of the camera bird people, as we call them, once they get a little taste of FPV, and as soon as they start, like you were saying, there are different levels, Mitch, where you could like speed things up a little bit. Once they get a taste, because Matt Cundiff, he just said he's a lower risk kind of pilot. I don't do trees, poles, etc. And what I told him was, that will come. That will come.
Yeah, you do. I like to fly down between the trees sometimes, but I also like to go up and sightsee.
But you can do both.
Cruise around.
That's the beauty.
I think that this is not a game changer. That it, as it's been built, in no way is it going to change the FPV hobby.
Is that what they call
It is. On the other hand, a gateway to the FPV hobby. I think
Very expensive one.
Well, yeah, but I do think that at a certain point, people are going to say, you know what, I really want to fly all that loopy, rolly, through the trees crap, but I don't want to risk this very expensive quad. Why don't I at this point, get a real, regular FPV quad and actually get serious about that? And I think a certain number of people will, but not many. Again, I think most people that buy this thing will never fly it in acro mode. Never.
I could see that.
Yeah. I think that most of them, and I would hesitate to say 80% of the people who buy this quad will never flip that switch. Just like so many people who actually start to learn to fly FPV with Tiny Hawks never flip the switch, go out of stabilized mode. They just, they need somebody like you, Carlos, pushing them to flip that switch and take. Paulie is an example of that.
Yeah.
And
It's all
without
about
that,
stick time, really.
they'll stay in the safer modes as well they should, because you know what the learning curve is to become a safe and proficient FPV pilot, and it's not weeks or days, it's months and years.
I'm 6 months into it now, and I still have so much to learn.
Well, look at me, I'm 2 years into it, and I don't push myself as hard as a lot of guys would, but it's not what I want to do. But I don't crash. I don't get nervous when I fly FPV now.
I was just going to say, just because you can't fly in between things has nothing to do with flying.
Well, I can fly in between things.
No, but I'm saying one doesn't take away from the other. Flying acro in and of itself is a feat. flying in between stuff is even harder.
Yeah, Matt, looking forward to meeting you guys in Florida here
Yeah.
in a couple of
Yeah,
weeks.
I'm
that'll
looking
be
forward
great.
to seeing
And
you, Matt.
Don't
I'll tell you
call.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together some scheduled events, FPV flying beforehand. We'll come up with some place and then actually publish that
Good
information.
idea.
So at such and such a date and time, we're going to be here, and here's a map, and that's going to be primarily for the FPV guys who want to fly, because the site that Ray picked for the is not an FPV. It's not a suitable FPV site for anything except taking off and flying up high and flying around. It's a park. It's busy. It's downtown. It's going to be crawling with people on a Saturday.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So I'll put together 2 or 3 things like for Friday and Sunday, and hopefully the weather.
I'll be
The weather will
keeping in
hold
touch
up.
with you, Mitch. Hey, Mitch, I got a blaze. Thanks
All right,
for
Art.
letting me pop in.
Okay,
Take
good
care,
to see you.
and
Take care, Art.
catch you guys next time.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
The beard's really coming in, man.
Oh, thank you.
What's coming in?
Or is that the light?
His beard, yeah.
It's got a light on it.
He looks like the Keebler elf. I told you.
I'm the Keebler Elvis. Thank you very much. Thank you.
See you, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care, Art. Are
Ah.
the Keebler elves still on the shelves? I know Mr. Potato Head's not Mr. anymore.
When I'm locked within the house.
Oh, let's not go there, man. We're talking about the DJI drone now.
All right.
We're
Sorry.
leaving politics out of this. At any rate, I don't know. There's a lot to this thing technically. I think we talked about a lot of it. The main questions I had were: is the throttle stick spring centered, or does it go up and down like a regular throttle? And you can do it either way. And one way is good for the stabilized modes, the other way is good for acro mode. Yet you can't change it mid-flight. You can't. You have to go in there with tools to take the spring loading out of the center. Bardwell, on one hand, decided that it's better to leave the spring in the center and just fly it that way. So when you pull the throttle low, you're pulling against the spring. But he said he didn't really notice much of a difference flying it that way.
I just thought of another downside.
Still moving the throttle. What is that, Ed?
Is that even if you decide you want a real FPV bird, you are going to be spoiled, and you're going to want a DJI air unit in it, because there's no way you'll go to analog.
Well, that's true, and if you but that's not really unreasonable, because if you've got the goggles already from this thing, you buy yourself a ready to bind and fly with the Vista in it. It's not for $350 you get yourself a really nice quad with a DJI system in it, and use the goggles that came with. You're going to have to buy a controller though once you get out of the DJI, unless you buy the DJI transmitter for the DJI FPV system. They're $300. I mean, you could pick one of them up, but I think you'd be better off buying something with crossfire in it, like a.
Well,
something
I mean, the
radio
last
system.
time I looked for a drone, a bind and fly, I guarantee over 50% of them were digital, had
Well-
the DJI whatever in it.
There's no doubt that DJI has certainly changed the course of the FPV community in a big way. I don't think that this is going to affect the FPV community as much as their goggles and air unit, to tell you the truth.
Not at all.
I think well, not I wouldn't say not at all, but
There's
I
going to
think
be a
that
lot of repairing and sad people out there if they fly anything like that. Other than that, it's just a regular Mavic Air that goes fast and does this.
well, it's more to it. There really is more to it than that.
Is there?
Yeah, it's really quite a little machine. It's very impressive. Again, if the batteries were $89, I might think twice about it. But the batteries are twice that. You know, I mean, it killed me to pay when I bought the batteries for my Mavic 2s. They were like $130 a piece. I thought that was absurd. You know, what do I pay? $30 for a lipo
Pretty
for
much.
you know for a 5-inch quad?
Somebody will hack that and they'll figure out a way to make regular lipos for them.
Well, yeah, they probably will, but don't forget it's an intelligent
Right. It
battery.
won't be a smart
It
battery.
works. It works. It's integrated into the flight control software, and you don't see too many people throwing regular lipos on a Mavic. It's tough to do, and you know they're built. That's one thing about the proprietary infrastructure. When the thing is designed to work the way it's supposed to work. It's not designed for hobbyists to start
components.
swapping out components. Yeah. Well, I think, guys, I'm going to make this. This is. I thought this was going to be about an hour, but we went over a little bit, and I just wanted to come in here and, for what it was worth, my 2 cents on the subject, along with everybody else's 2 cents. That's
Well,
been out
I
there
mean, I
today.
think it'll be interesting to see. We have somebody that's going to have one of these things,
Oh,
a
God,
newcomer,
absolutely.
Matt Cundiff. So it'll be cool to hear what
I,
his
I,
thing is.
we're
So
gonna see nothing but DJI FPV videos for the foreseeable future.
But we're only going to watch match.
Matt's,
well,
yeah.
we know Matt.
That's
That's where I'm getting at.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate the
I
compliment.
know it. I know.
John, take care, buddy. John Coopy, good to see you. Thanks for stopping in. Bob Casey was here. Hey, Bob, I
Bob
didn't see
Casey
you.
here is
How
here.
you
Bob
doing, buddy?
Casey, John
I'm
Coopy,
looking
all the
forward
way.
to meeting Bob down here in Florida. And where's Ray Kelly? I didn't see him in here today.
I know. No Ray
Yeah.
Kelly. What the hell?
Can I just do one thing, Mitch?
Sure.
In Florida and drone boat.
Oh, you.
Drone boat. It sounds very gay there.
Yeah, we can't have a stream go by without
Gotta
that.
have at least
We gotta have it. Anyway, guys,
Paul.
so I think this is
Buddy.
okay. This, you know, I told you when I do these impromptu things, when there was something to talk about, we just come in and talk about it rather than try to fill up some scheduled 2-hour deal. So for the time being, that's what I think I'm going to do.
Cool.
And I think it worked out pretty good. We got a nice little crowd in here today, and I managed to get my opinion out. It'd be interesting to read some of the comments on here. How many no
It
thumbs
was nice.
downs? Wow.
It was nice
Yeah,
to see
great.
quite a few people said.
Yeah, great. And it's fun to be back. You know, it's I enjoy these things, and
I like
I
the
missed it.
impromptu thing. The scheduled thing, man, is too much. It's more like, oh God, I gotta do this. No, you
no.
gotta do it when you feel it. When you
Well-
feel it inside.
all of your stuff is impromptu, Ed, and we enjoy those. You know, when
Yeah,
you feel
yeah.
like flying, let's fly. So, you know, once or twice a week I'll come on here. There's going to be plenty to talk about, and we'll just do it this way. So, guys, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Everybody
guys.
in the chat, thank you
Take
so
care,
much. No fly
Ed.
drone.
Commander. Oh, yeah.
Later, everybody.
SPV Army.
Take care. All
Thanks,
right,
Nick.
anyway, come back to me and Spack. Thanks, Paulie. Well, thanks everybody for coming in. I enjoyed that, and I'm sure there was an awful lot of thoughts I had about this thing over the course of the day that I didn't get to talk about. But I think the main points of how I feel about this came out, and yeah, I guess I'm probably still on the fence, but I'm leaning towards no. And like I said, the main reason that I'm leaning towards no is the cost of the freaking batteries. If I'm going to spend $1,300 to buy this package, I would need at least 4 batteries. And 3 more batteries are going to cost close to $500. And that's without the care refresh. And then if you add the care refresh to another couple $100, now we're at two grand. And it's just a lot of money for what it does. And for 2 grand, you can buy yourself 5 bind and fly quads. I mean, expensive ones with the DJI systems in them. You gotta look at wrecking this thing once, as opposed to having 5 pristine, brand new, bind and fly, even if you don't build them. If I want to build them myself, I'd be even less than that. So it's a tough one. If I do buy one, it's going to be someplace I can actually return it for a full refund, and that would have to be Amazon. And if I do buy it that way, it would have to just knock my socks off for me to keep it. So it's tough decision. Tough decision. I've always seemed to jump at these new things that DJI comes out with, and today I actually showed some restraint. So with that being said, guys, thanks again for coming in, everybody. Let me crank up a little exit music here, and give everybody the rest of the day off. Go play with your drones and enjoy the ones you got. That's what I'm trying to do, as opposed to always thinking about what new ones to buy and focusing on what we don't have. So with that, I'll turn it over to my trusty sidekick, Spank, the monkey, to say goodbye. See you all later.